She was a hard-working mother and entrepreneur.
She lived with her mother-in-law and her husband, and she had 5 children.
She was the one who was bringing in all the money, so they were relying on her.
Until a bold new venture put her in the crosshairs of a dangerous enemy.
One of the bullets went into a room that was occupied by a baby.
The panic, the fear, life as you knew it is no longer the same.
But was it the cost of doing business with the wrong people, or a personal vendetta?
Because of the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. When people want revenge, they usually want it right away.
July 10th, 2006. Around 2:45 a.m., police in Largo, Florida respond to a reported break-in at a business in town.
The owner is a 39-year-old woman named Christina Ladrini. By the time officers arrived, she was waiting for them inside. It looks like some windows of the building had been shattered.
A witness had called it in from a nearby laundromat, and Christina had been immediately notified. But before an investigation even begins, Christina receives more disturbing news.
She's still giving a report to police when the phone rings. It's her husband, and he just said he heard gunshots outside of their house.
As the officer with Christina calls it in, she calls in an employee to supervise the shop so she can go home to her family. Deputies from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department are immediately dispatched to the couple's home.
Christina's family lived about 3 miles away in the neighboring town of Clearwater. When officers got there, they found glass all over the place, and the couple's minivan had been shot up.
No one was injured, but it still had to be very frightening.
Christina Ladrini has 5 children. They range in ages, including an 11-month-old baby. Everybody was freaking out, especially since it's in the middle of the night. It shakes an entire neighborhood.
No one else in the neighborhood appears to have suffered any damage. And since the shooting occurred just an hour after the break-in at Christina's shop, one thought is on everyone's mind.
Either this couple has the worst luck in the world, or someone was targeting them.
To those who knew her, Christina Ladrini was a loving wife and mother, doing everything she could to support her family.
Christina Ladrini was the eldest of 5 kids. In fact, she had 5 kids of her own. She came from a very hard-working family, and she valued family and health over wealth.
Growing up, it seemed like Christina was the typical girl next door. Sweet, well-intentioned, always seeing the best in people, including the man that she eventually fell in love with, Vincent Ladrini.
Vincent was known as kind of a bad boy, but to Christina, he was handsome, he was fun, he was a nice guy.
And after just a few years of marriage, Christina's faith seemed to have paid off.
They both had jobs, and they had a nice little house in Clearwater. It was a great place to raise their kids. From the outside looking in, they were just one big happy family.
Christina Ladrini had such a huge heart. She was a patient care technician. Her whole mission was to take care of her family. So in order to do that, she was willing to work as hard as she possibly could.
Over time, Christina even managed to put aside enough for her husband, Vincent, to start his own business.
Christina's husband kind of had big dreams. He didn't want to work for anybody else. He had aquariums in his house and thought he could run a business. So Christina had opened a business for him. He was gung-ho putting it together, but when it came down to the work, he didn't show up. So it was 6 months and the business went under.
With 5 kids under 18 and their resources running out, it fell on Christina to find a way to make ends meet.
She was pretty much the one who was bringing in all the money. So they were relying on her to pay for everything.
Christina was determined not to let this affect her children, But a patient care salary was simply not enough to live on. And so when she was offered an opportunity to make a lot more money, she took it without asking many questions.
The job turned out to be managing a store where the girls provided a variety of different services. In the front, they sold lingerie, aromatherapy candles, and stuff like that. In the back was used for lingerie modeling.
It wasn't Christina's dream job by any stretch of the imagination, but it was legal, it paid well, and she didn't have to entertain any clients.
It wasn't long before Christina's financial difficulties were over.
We're talking about a considerable amount of money. And no matter how strange the job may be, that's hard to say no to. After a year or so, she worked her way up.
She made more than enough to provide for her family, and in fact, she was able to actually start putting money aside again. But this time, Christina decided to invest in herself. She opened up a lingerie shop with one of her friends named Marcy.
Christina had to think about her children's futures, and she probably wasn't going to be able to put 5 kids through college working for someone else. Starting a business seemed like the next logical step.
There were already some similar businesses in the area, but Christina was convinced that the area could support one more. So when they saw a vacancy on Ulmerton Road, they wasted no time signing a lease.
But this new business venture would also run into trouble. Just 10 days after the grand opening, someone had broken into Christina's business and shot her husband's minivan full of holes, and police want to know why.
The 2 crimes occurred like an hour apart. Nothing stolen, just property damage. It looked like someone might be trying to send Christina a message.
Coming up, a disturbing phone call points investigators toward 2 possible suspects.
They were alleged to have serious problems with drugs, and plenty of people have seen at least one of them carrying a gun.
Florida police are investigating a pair of crimes against Christina Lodrini and her family. A break-in at her business in Largo, and shots fired outside their home in nearby Clearwater.
Investigators from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office were at the couple's home getting statements. Vincent and his neighbors reported hearing 4 or 5 gunshots, but it appeared that the only damage was to the minivan.
The front windshield was cracked in 3 places. 2 of the passenger side windows and the driver's side windows were shot out. And there was a bullet hole in the left rear quarter panel of the vehicle.
Thank God nobody got hit, nobody got shot, nobody got hurt.
A forensics team carefully inspects the area, but no shell casings or any other evidence can be found.
The first thing detectives are going to ask, do you have any enemies? Can you think of anybody that might want to hurt you?
Vincent couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm himself or his family.
He managed to catch a glimpse of the vehicle. However, Vincent said that after he heard the shots, he ran outside and saw a silver or gray SUV driving with no lights on. Unfortunately, it was too dark for him to get a license plate.
While Christina waits for her business partner to arrive, detectives start investigating the break-in scene.
The window had been shattered there as well, but there didn't appear to be any bullet holes. And there were no reports of gunfire in the area, so it was possible that it was unrelated. And they were looking for 2 different sets of suspects.
You might think attempted robbery, but when they walk Christina through the scene, there's nothing missing. That makes it look more like an act of vandalism.
Christina says she has no idea who would vandalize the shop. No angry customers, nor disgruntled employees. So maybe it's a group of teenagers or someone making trouble.
Unfortunately, police couldn't get any fingerprints from either the shattered glass or the front door.
While investigators finish their walkthrough with Christina, uniformed officers take a statement from the man who called in the report.
He had been washing his clothes at the 24-hour laundromat next to Christina's business. He said he was in his car waiting for the clothes to dry when he heard the sound of breaking glass. So he took cover and called police.
Unfortunately, that means he didn't see who did it, and he didn't see anyone leaving the scene at the time of the crime.
They hadn't found any leads at home nor at the store. And while police weren't sure if the two crimes had anything to do with one another, if you're Christina, you gotta be pretty shaken up at that point.
When her business partner arrives, Christina returns home to care for her family. But as they try to recover, Christina receives an ominous phone call.
It was almost 6 a.m. at that point, and she just got finished talking to police. So she let it go to voicemail.
The voice wasn't one that she recognized, and in fact, she couldn't even tell if the voice were male or female. But the message they left was disturbing. They said they were representing their clients and that next time there would not be warning shots.
Christina immediately notifies police, and officers are sent to watch over the family.
She's terrified. She has no idea what my client means. That's something a lawyer would say, and that's obviously not the case here.
Whoever it was, they made it clear that these were targeted attacks. They shot up the family minivan, which could be taken as a threat to hurt her kids if she didn't do what they wanted. The problem was, they didn't say what they wanted, so there's nothing that she can do to stop it from happening again.
The panic, the fear, life as you knew it is no longer the same.
Detectives began interviewing Christina's employees and business associates, hoping to find a lead. They quickly come up with the names of two possible suspects.
One of the employees tells police that she and Christina used to work at a shop nearby owned by a woman named Kristen. She claims that Kristen and her boyfriend Donald were heavy drug users, and Donald often carried a gun.
Kristen apparently had a reputation for threatening former employees when they found work elsewhere, so Christina starting a rival business could clearly have set her off.
Christina's business partner, Marcy, even told detectives that she thought it might be Donald's voice on their threatening message.
Investigators traced the phone call, but unfortunately, the number is not registered to Donald or Kristen.
It's one of those pay-as-you-go accounts, what police call a burner phone. Anyone could set one up with any name they choose. So that turned out to be a dead end.
However, police find a possible connection. A witness places Donald and Kristen at the scene just a couple blocks from the shooting.
A convenience store clerk recognized two people matching the couple's description hanging around the store. They were in a four-door truck with a broken back window.
Could this be the vehicle Christina's husband saw speeding away from their house after the shooting?
Christina told police that Donald and Kristen didn't live anywhere near her, so it was very suspicious they were there around the time of the shooting.
Detectives recommended that she activate the security cameras at her shop and install cameras outside the house as well. If they catch anyone lurking around, it'll help establish a pattern of harassment when it comes time to press charges.
Christina takes investigators' advice and installs the cameras. But no one could have anticipated what they would record. Coming up, more shots are fired, and this time, the consequences could be devastating.
Those bullets went through, hit a mirror above the baby's bed.
The morning after the attacks on Christina Lodrini's home and business, detectives in Largo, Florida have come up with a pair of possible suspects. Two rival business owners named Kristen and Donald.
Christina kind of stepped on their toes by opening a competing store, so clearly they were persons of interest in this case.
There was no direct evidence yet linking the couple to the shooting. Since the voicemail that Christina received had threatened further harm, police were taking it very seriously, and so was she.
The lead detective, he tells her to go get a surveillance camera. So she heads to her local Walmart, invests $25 into a camera for her home.
In the meantime, investigators are searching for their suspects, but so far, it looks like the pair are trying to avoid them.
They reached out to everyone who knew these two: family, friends, neighbors, former employees. There's no way they didn't know police wanted to speak to them, but they still didn't surface. If they were innocent, you would think they'd want to come in and clear up any confusion.
Weeks pass, and thankfully, Christina and her family come under no further attacks.
Life sort of returned to normal, both at work and at home. The summer was winding down, and the kids were going back to school, and despite a rocky start, her business was actually doing pretty well.
It seemed like whoever threatened her might have gone away or given up, but investigators were still working the case.
A month and a half later, on August 24th, Donald and Kristen finally show up in a Pinellas County courthouse.
Turns out, they've been summoned on completely different charges, but investigators instantly recognized their names and brought them in for questioning.
They both lawyered up and would not talk. That certainly looked like they had something to hide, but without concrete evidence, police couldn't charge them with anything.
At that point, the investigation had basically hit a roadblock. The upshot is the danger to Christina and her family seems to be over.
But in the early morning hours of September 7th, police get another urgent call from Christina.
911, what is your emergency?
I just had shots fired into my house.
At what address, ma'am? Does anybody need a paramedic?
No, we don't, but I do need,
Let me put you right on the phone with the sheriff's office.
What Christina describes is completely terrifying. The previous gunshots were aimed at a vehicle. This time, whoever it was fired 6 shots directly into the Ladrini home, with 8 people asleep inside.
You have a home here now that's riddled with bullets. You have bullets actually lodged in the wall. You have a TV damaged. You have windows shattered. And you have even an 11-month-old baby grazed by some of that glass.
Those bullets hit a mirror above the baby's bed where glass fell into the baby's bed. To hear those rounds being fired and hearing glass break in your residence in the early mornings, got to be bone-chilling.
If the guns point a little bit lower or a little bit higher or a little bit more to the left or a little bit more to the right, this could have gone so much worse and would have been a real tragedy.
It seems that whoever threatened Christina and her family wasn't finished after all. But this time, investigators are hopeful that the suspect has been caught on tape.
Christina verified that the security cameras that she installed outside of her home were working. So they rolled back the footage to the time of the attack.
Thankfully, the coverage of the camera provided a pretty good look at the shooter. It appeared to be a woman in her late 20s, early 30s, and the way it goes down is extremely alarming to police.
It was chilling. You saw a vehicle pull up and stop. You saw a person get out, moving in a very particular way. Her gait, the person's movement, was noticeable. And then you saw that person pull out a weapon and start firing. And it's jarring because you don't see something like that often, thank God.
The way she's aiming and firing the gun. Officers know it all too well. Something clicks in their mind that this must be someone who is trained in law enforcement.
But that's not the only surprise.
The video is grainy. You may not be able to see the woman's face, but her walk is unmistakable. And it's a walk that Christina knows all too well. It's one of her closest, dearest friends.
Christina identifies the shooter as 30-year-old Courtney Savage, her best friend and former business partner.
The images shook her to the core. Why would Courtney have such animosity towards her?
They apparently spoke on the phone nearly every day. You'd think if your best friend had a problem with you, they'd tell you what it was before they started shooting.
Coming up, an officer of the law becomes a woman out for revenge.
She was angry, and she didn't deal with that anger very well.
Christina Ladrini and her family have once again been the target of a terrifying attack. And what's even more frightening is the identity of the shooter.
This isn't some stranger with a grudge. Courtney Savage is one of her closest friends. And not only that, it turns out she's a former police officer.
Courtney wanted to be in law enforcement since she was a teen, so she trained for it. And that's where she met her husband as he was going to be a police officer also.
I started dating my husband at the time when we were in the Corrections Academy, and we ended up getting married in March of '99.
After they graduated from the academy, they both got jobs working at Florida prisons.
I was hired as a correctional officer for Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. Worked there for a little while, but I wanted to, go onto the law enforcement side. So I got a position as a reserve officer for Tampa Police Department.
However, Courtney quickly discovered the job wasn't all she hoped it would be.
She was not making much money. I think she was making $8 an hour. And it was very difficult.
You're right on the streets with them. You're in full uniform and you're, doing everything a regular police officer would do. The only thing is that you are part-time. It was stressful.
She saw ads in the paper for lingerie modeling. So she looked into it, and there was really very little that I could do to change her mind.
Soon, Courtney was earning more as a model than she could have ever imagined.
We wanted to take vacations, if we wanted to, whatever we wanted to do, we had the money for, which was a help. And it was good for a while.
Courtney eventually decided to go into business for herself.
What was the point in working for other people that she could do the same thing? She could own the shop. So she went around, looked for a place to rent. She found one. She stocked it. She hired people to help her.
One of the people Courtney hired was Christina Lodrini.
She was reliable and responsible, kind of someone you can always call, you can count on. I automatically said, I want her to come work for me.
They worked well together, and as they got to know each other, they became close friends.
So in 2005, when health problems left Courtney bedridden, she turned to Christina for help.
Courtney was ill due to heavy metal poisoning from dental work she received.
She went to Mexico to have her teeth done. Unfortunately, the products that they use for the teeth down there have a lot of mercury and other chemicals in them.
I started having grand mal seizures. I had pain all over. It was terrible. High fevers. It was bad. I was on a lot of seizure medicine. I was on a lot of antidepressants, sleeping medicine, sedatives, everything you can think of. I had a laundry list of pharmaceuticals I had to take every day.
So she was in no condition, emotionally, physically, mentally, to be at a business, let alone run it. So, she took a couple of months off. She entrusted the business to someone she considered a friend.
I knew Christina for 9 years. She was my best friend. I thought I could rely on her.
Christina tells detectives that she kept the shop running as long as she could, but she ran into an unforeseen problem.
She approached the landlord to renew her lease, but the landlord told her he was actually going to give it to the bar owner next door so he could expand his business.
That was not the kind of problem she expected to deal with when she agreed to help out, but Courtney was in no place to handle it, so she had to do something.
But Christina wasn't going to stop there. She made a vow to her friend. She actually begged the landlord to please reconsider. She even offered to double the rent, but the landlord simply would not budge.
Christina says she was forced to clean out Courtney's shop and made arrangements to return the unsold merchandise.
It wasn't her fault, but I'm sure she still felt terrible about it.
In Christina's eyes, they parted amicably. She thought that her friend knew that she did everything that she could to save the business, and these circumstances were out of control.
It's definitely the type of thing that can cause bad blood between friends, but this had happened more than a year ago. So if Courtney held a grudge, you would think she would have done something about it before now.
Christina has identified Courtney as the shooter captured on tape, but the footage is too grainy to guarantee a conviction. So investigators ask Christina to help them obtain more evidence.
Detective Lewis had Christina make a controlled phone call. to Courtney, asking her strategic questions about the shooting of the residents and her involvement.
She called me and accused me, "Oh, did you shoot up my house?" And I said, "Are you crazy or something?" I don't know, something like that.
However, it quickly becomes clear that Courtney still blames Christina for what happened to her business.
Courtney denies at first that she had anything to do with the shooting. But after further pressing, Courtney admits that she was very angry at Christina, felt that she drove the business into the ground.
I would call the shop and nobody would answer. And I thought, what are they doing? Then my landlord, he told me the story that she hadn't paid any rent, that he had put a formal eviction on her door.
Christina denies the landlord's allegations, but the more they discuss it, the angrier Courtney becomes.
The motivating factor was revenge. She felt manipulated, taken advantage of.
Tina had ruined her business, had lied to her, had betrayed her.
When Christina finally asks Courtney what she can do to end the attacks, investigators get the closest thing they've heard to a confession.
She offered me a figure, like $2,000 or something, and asked, will it stop? And I said, well, that's a start.
They agreed to meet at a diner in Clearwater at 10 p.m. Christina tells Courtney she'll bring the money in cash, but police are there waiting for her.
Coming up, Courtney's arrest takes an unexpected turn.
She lunged for a weapon that was in the glove box.
Less than 24 hours after security cameras caught former police officer Courtney Savage firing a gun into Christina Ladrini's house, detectives are getting ready to arrest her.
The trap has been laid because Christina is able to convince Courtney to meet her so she could give her $2,500 that Courtney feels that she is owed.
Officers follow Courtney to the diner where they spring the trap. But the arrest doesn't exactly go according to plan.
Because of Courtney's training, the police knew that they had to move very quickly. They could not give Courtney the upper hand.
My doors automatically unlock my truck, and I see this person coming up alongside of my truck, just like slithering alongside of my truck, and rips my door open. And in one fluid movement, he grabbed me from the seat to the ground, and started tasing me.
It was conveyed to me that she lunged for a weapon that was in the glove box and had to be tased.
Never said, "This is a please get out," nothing. It was open my door and snatch at me. So of course my reaction is going to be like, there was no time to resist. I didn't know what was going on.
Back at the station, detectives give Courtney a chance to explain herself.
When a suspect is taken into custody, a lot of times they shut down. They don't say anything. But Courtney surprises everybody. She's willing to talk.
Well, I'm an honest person, and I figured it would be easy for me if I just, told the truth. I did it, I shot into a house. I was the type of a law enforcement officer that if you were straight with me, I was going to go easy on you. That's the way I was, and I just assumed that was the best route to go.
Courtney goes into great detail on why she did it. She claimed that Christina owed $2,500 in unsold merchandise that was never returned to her, and $15,000 worth of other business equipment that went missing when the shop was under Christina's supervision. She felt completely betrayed.
But instead of confronting her friend, Courtney had let her anger fester for almost a year.
A few months after Courtney recovered from all of her health problems, she discovered Christina was about to open another business with a different friend. This set her over the edge.
She told me that she was very, very angry at Tina, wanted to get back at her, wanted to get revenge.
This is a bizarre case because when people want revenge, they usually want it right away. Courtney Savage acted out over a 90-day period.
According to Courtney, the first attack was intended to put Christina out of business.
Courtney said she hoped that Christina's landlord would revoke her lease. If she was attracting that kind of trouble, maybe they would have evicted her.
And Courtney used a voice disguising device to leave Christina threatening voicemails.
When that didn't work, things sort of escalated from there. Christina hadn't responded to the voicemail threats, so she decided to go over there in the middle of the night to vent her frustrations.
I just lost it and went over there and just, I guess I was trying to scare her,
Despite narrowly avoiding any casualties, Courtney insists that she never meant to harm anyone.
I'm a master marksman. The reason I got out of the truck was to make sure that my bullets just didn't fly everywhere. I wanted to make sure that I was, aiming to a point where I could see where my bullets were going.
She said she was the one driving the SUV that Christina's husband saw leaving the scene. There were no accomplices. The SUV was a rental, so she wouldn't be recognized.
I didn't want to use my vehicle, And plus, the vehicle was also my husband's truck, so I didn't want him to get in trouble or anything.
She even tells investigators where to find the gun she used.
Courtney says the Glock isn't the one they're looking for. She actually used the .357, which she got rid of afterwards.
Courtney had hidden the gun in my mother's mobile home shed down in Clearwater.
She filled out a written statement confessing to all of her actions. As far as she was concerned, that would be the end of it. She would just get probation.
I cooperated with the detectives. I was originally charged with shooting into an occupied dwelling, and I'd never been arrested before, and I didn't foresee any major problems from it.
It's the first clue that investigators have that she feels she did nothing wrong.
Had the mercury poisoning from her botched dental work affected Courtney's judgment?
It definitely was not in my normal state of mind. When you chew food or when you drink something hot, the heavy metal releases a vapor and it goes up into your brain. And what they used to call that was Mad Hatter syndrome.
If Courtney was expecting a slap on the wrist, she is sorely mistaken.
They sent me over to the jail side. I tried to arrange bond right away. And then I couldn't arrange bond because they pulled back the shooting to an occupied dwelling charge and started amending it.
The allegations were very serious, and it happened on more than one occasion, so the state attorney's office would be coming hard at Courtney.
Coming up, a routine hearing turns into a nationwide manhunt.
Had a whole new identity.
She was considered a fugitive of justice.
Courtney Savage has confessed to firing 6 bullets into the home of her best friend, Christina Ladrini, as payback for letting her business fall into ruin.
I knew I'd never get any money back. I knew I'd never have my business back. I just wanted her to admit that she betrayed me.
Despite the fact that no one was injured, there is a lot for prosecutors to consider when weighing the charges. The fact that Courtney seemed to believe that what she did wasn't that big of a deal certainly didn't help.
The charges against Courtney are increased to include 8 counts of attempted murder.
The district attorney at the time threatened Courtney with 7 life sentences. We were terrified.
At that time, her and her husband were going through a divorce. The divorce was finalized, and she obtained some money from the divorce, which allowed her to post a bond.
Courtney's preliminary hearing is set for July 20th, 2007, but she never shows up.
When she found out that they were changing the charges, she made up her mind to go on the run. She went on the lam in Mexico. to have plastic surgery to alter her profile.
I, packed some bags and left everything behind. I had a brow lift, an eye job, nose job, chin contour, had a whole new identity, clean identity I purchased.
The court immediately issues a warrant for her arrest, and the manhunt begins.
She was considered a fugitive of justice. Detective Lewis did an excellent job and did everything that any seasoned investigator would have done. He tracked down old friends, interviewed the mom, and even tracked her up to New Jersey, where she was from, finding old acquaintances.
But despite their best efforts, Courtney manages to elude police for over a year. And with her new appearance, she returned to the U.S. undetected.
I'd laid low for a while in Oklahoma. I figured, what's a great place to blend in? I didn't use any credit. I had worked 2 different bartending jobs, actually, and they both paid under the table. I was in Oklahoma for about 5.5 months.
Florida police weren't making any headway, so they eventually chose to enlist the help of the media.
It was posted in the Tampa paper that I was going to be on America's Most Wanted.
The episode featuring Courtney airs on September 20th, 2008, 2 years after the initial shooting.
It was very upsetting. I wanted to turn away, but I had to watch it. I had to. It was the first time I had seen the video of her shooting into Tina's house, and it was just anger and sadness and hopelessness, because you don't know what you can do to get your child out of this terrible predicament.
2 days later, a viewer calls the tip line with her location.
I had a really, really bad feeling that day, just horrible feeling. And I saw this man watching me. So I ran around the corner and I started to call my boyfriend at work. And as I was walking around the corner, here comes 2 patrol units. And I knew they were for me.
Surveillance deputies identified her. The team leader made a decision to approach, and they arrested her and took her into custody.
This time, Courtney doesn't resist. She is quickly extradited back to Florida.
She had to face the original charges that she was facing when she left. The state attorney's office added yet another charge for failing to appear in court. Her maximum exposure was, again, more than 100 years in jail.
She still had the option of taking her case to trial, but with that much evidence against her, she had very little chance of winning.
We started offering different pleas, and they kept rejecting them. Then eventually they came back with 20 and 10, or go to trial.
It was the best she could have expected, given the serious nature of these charges.
On April 15th, 2009, Courtney Savage pleads guilty to all charges. She is sentenced to 20 years in prison.
For Christina, you can imagine that justice is finally being served. It's finally closure for the victim's family and closure for police, too.
It was a terrible crime, but I thought the sentence was a bit much. You lock someone up, throw them away, and you don't give them any kind of counseling.
In my heart of hearts, I really believe that if she had stayed and she didn't run, she would have gotten a much better sentence than she ended up with.
What started out as best friends involved in a business had ultimately ended with an act of betrayal.
It was a terrible thing that had happened, and what a shame that 2 friends would end up this way. Horrific sadness.
Would tell Christina, I'm sorry it had to happen that way. I feel like there were, things that were done to me that kind of pushed me over the edge. With the problems I was having mentally and with my health problems, I feel like I would never have done this in a normal situation.
There's certain professions that you hold at a higher standard. A police officer shooting into a home with children inside and then claiming she didn't hurt anybody, so she should be on probation. Unbelievable.
She was a beloved horse trainer looking forward to the next phase of her career.
She was a kind and gentle woman who'd been devoted to horses all of her life.
She had got to this point in her life where actually everything should have been plain sailing.
But her retirement plans were cut short by a vicious attack.
There was heavy blood staining to the floor, blood staining to the walls.
It just looks like something from a horror movie.
It was a disturbing case that would take investigators into the mind of a killer driven by hatred and revenge.
All of that rage, all of that anger had burst out a big cathartic explosion.
July 15th, 2016. It's late Friday afternoon near the sleepy village of Seaton in northern England. Local farmer Sam Southwell is just finishing his chores for the day when he notices that his sister, 60-year-old Fiona Southwell, hasn't returned home from work.
Fiona was employed as a stable hand at a place called Grange Farm. Now, Sam started to get worried because it wasn't like her to be late.
It was around the afternoon time, and usually she would have come back to the farm where they lived. I think it was only about a mile, if that, away. He just starts to say something must be wrong. So he jumps in his Land Rover and he goes to the farm.
When Sam gets there, the farm's owner tells him that he isn't sure where Fiona is.
He'd seen her tending the horses earlier. He thought she'd left for the day. If she was going to be anywhere, she was going to be in the barn. Sam makes his way past the stables about 15 meters towards the end of the barn, and it's there he stumbles upon this horrifying scene.
It just looks like something from a horror movie. There's blood splattered up the walls. There is just blood everywhere.
On the floor of the barn is his sister, Fiona.
She was lying on her back in a corner near a wheelbarrow in a pool of blood. It was obviously a very violent scene.
She couldn't be resuscitated. He was aware just from looking at Fiona that she was dead.
It's terrifying on a number of levels. I mean, who does something like this to a 60-year-old woman?
Ever since she was a little girl, Fiona Southwell spent most of her time around horses.
She had her first pony at the age of 1.5 and never lost that passion.
So the goals that other people may have, big houses, fast cars, didn't interest Fiona at all.
As she grew older, Fiona would turn that calling into a successful career.
She rode competitively in shows. She'd also taken part in a pageant for the Queen's Silver Jubilee. She also suffered a number of injuries horse riding, so then she became a riding instructor.
She was really highly respected within equestrian circles. She was a judge at county shows and things like that.
When her riding days were over, Fiona moved on to other pursuits, but she'd never strayed far from her first love.
Horses were an integral part of her life, which is why she'd taken the job at Grange Farm. But she was also making plans for the future.
At the age of 60, she was planning what would have been quite a big move out of the area, down to the south of England, where she would have had equestrian facilities.
Fiona had a lifelong friend, Brian. He had bought some land in the south of the country and had invited her to come and have a new chapter, as you would describe, in her life and go to live with Brian and his partner to look after their horses.
Now, Fiona has been brutally murdered, and local police want to know who's responsible.
You build these thoughts on the way to a scene. What might be my possible scenarios? And so, whilst it was initially reported that this could be a homicide or a murder, equally I was thinking, is this an industrial accident? Has there been an accident with the horses? Has she been kicked? Or has she injured herself in some way by accident? Or is it suicide? And they're all the scenarios that present themselves. And what's absolutely essential as an investigator is to keep an open mind, despite what feelings and bias you may naturally lean towards, just so that you keep your options open. I got to the scene and was greeted by, uniformed colleagues who'd cordoned, preserving the evidence that was there. On approaching Fiona's body within the stabling area, it was abundantly clear very quickly that this was a murder. The level of violence used in the attack was particularly sustained and violent. There were significant stab wounds.
Fiona was found to have 19 different stab wounds to her head and body. The force used was extremely violent.
The first thing they have to do is secure the crime scene, which is no easy task considering where they are.
I'm faced with what is a significant scene to manage because the farm was quite large and we're in a rural location with many routes of egress from the scene for the offender.
As forensic specialists began collecting evidence, detectives interview the farm's other employees.
There were several people in and around the farm at that time, and that had been during that day.
The last time anyone had seen Fiona was around 9:30 in the morning when she'd put the horses out to field. The tenant farmer told the police that she was a relatively new hire, but she seemed to get along fine with everyone.
They didn't know whether it was a burglary, a theft, and Fiona's kind of caught them. There was just so much confusion. But because of the way that she was found and she was slain, it was pointing towards a bit more than just, the average theft or burglary gone wrong.
After more than 8 hours of investigation, police are left in the dark, in more ways than one.
We'd lost daylight. It was dark in that barn. We needed to bring in specialist scientific advisors to give us the best chance of understanding exactly what had happened. And so that decision at that time was that the scene would be secured, that Fiona would be remaining where she was until the next morning where we could do more work.
As the small seaside town sleeps, investigators wait for the necessary equipment and experts to arrive, and a killer remains at large.
They posted guards to watch over the body, but detectives were still concerned because somewhere out there was a killer.
Are the officers on that scene guard at risk? Is somebody within the curtilage of the farm hiding? Within stackyards, barns, outbuildings, all the things that all farms have? Disturbing, really, to think that somebody is out there right now. This has not been done very long, and is anybody else at risk from that person?
Coming up, daylight reveals the full extent of this vicious attack.
It became increasingly concerning that an attack such as this, is it somebody with a grievance or is it a stranger?
On the morning of July 16, 2016, detectives in northern England returned to the barn where 60-year-old Fiona Southwell was found brutally murdered.
It was obviously a very extreme incident.
The investigators and detectives walking up to that small farm in Seaton, it was just, I think it was probably unthinkable what would be going through their mind.
It was an incredibly hot weekend. Summer, sun was burning, blisteringly hot weather, and it felt very different than it had the night before and during the hours of darkness.
And the small seaside town has woken to the news that there is a killer on the loose.
Straight away, the national press, the international press were all over the story because an idyllic farm in East Yorkshire, it's horrible. A woman slain, a tiny little old lady basically slain in a barn doing a job that she loved.
We think about, how does this feel to be in this community? Knowing this has happened, how would I feel? We were doing everything that we needed to do to make them safe and to feel safe.
Detective Tony Cockrell leads the investigation.
I reattended the scene with our forensic scientists and scenes of crime officers to go and reassess where we were, see where Fiona was again, and see what the interpretation of that scene meant to us in the daylight so we could see clearly exactly as to what had happened.
It was much, much worse in the light of day. Examining the body, they discovered that she'd been stabbed several times. And although Fiona was a small woman, it was clear that she had fought really hard for her life.
She had those stab wounds throughout her body and arms, and the attack was really brutal. 19 in total, including injuries to her hands and forearms, indicating to me that she had tried to defend herself in some way during the attack. What we would call defense injuries.
The ferocity of the attack is really telling. It's up close, it's personal, it takes a lot of time and strength and effort to do that. This is somebody who was engaged in a frenzy of overkill, who was really getting out all of that passionate anger.
Fiona's body is transported to a mortuary where a pathologist will conduct an autopsy. In the meantime, police continue to gather evidence.
Forensic experts are combing through the site itself, while detectives are canvassing the surrounding area looking for witnesses.
Within urbanised areas, it's easier because there are lots of people to go and speak to. However, in this rural setting, in a community of farms that were outlying, it's very difficult.
No one saw or heard anything. So they talked to the family to find out if anyone had it out for Fiona, maybe an angry ex-boyfriend or something like that.
It came across very strange. An elderly woman in her 60s who tends to horses would be found in such a way. You didn't know whether Fiona got romantically involved with someone and then it's turned into, something a bit more than just a killing, a murder.
According to Fiona's loved ones, she wasn't the kind of person who had enemies.
She wasn't in a relationship. She didn't have people that she had fallen out with. There was absolutely no suggestion whatsoever that she had enemies to fall out with or anybody who would have such grievance against her.
Her family described her as this wonderful, kind woman who wouldn't hurt a fly.
Fiona's brother Sam took it particularly hard, especially as he was the one who found Fiona's body.
It was just obviously distraught. It was a sense of just an unbelievable thing had happened to him. He was just also lost for words. He just couldn't believe it. He just had no clue, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking for him.
Unable to narrow their search, investigators work with Fiona's family to make a list of all the people in her life.
That list grew as the more people that we speak to would give us more information. And we would deploy teams of investigators to speak to these people and to glean what information that we could to build up very quickly a picture of her life.
They're looking for any kind of lead or possible motive, but unfortunately, no one jumped out as a potential suspect.
The people around Fiona were all consistently shocked at what had happened to her, and significantly, no one was presenting themselves at that time to me as the senior investigating officer as a person of interest.
So investigators return to the scene of the crime.
They go back to retrace the killer's steps to work out how he might have gotten in and where he went afterwards.
The police had taped off the entire perimeter of the farm, even the lanes around it.
It gave us an opportunity to look around the farm, create a map of the area so that we understood the routes of egress that an offender may have taken.
It doesn't take long for them to come up with a possible lead.
The most obvious route was up the side of a field, leaving from the barn, and led to an old disused railway track, which led all the way, if you walked down the length of that track, back into the town. And I set about our trained search officers looking down the side of the field towards the track.
Coming up, detectives finally make a breakthrough.
They came back quite excitedly, having had what I would call a significant find.
It has been 18 hours since Fiona Southwell was found stabbed to death in the stables where she worked, and police are no closer to finding her killer.
Although no one seemed to have any idea who might have done it, the nature of the crime was a clue in and of itself.
The level of violence that was used to kill Fiona suggested there was something personal behind it.
It's very, very personal to stab somebody, and stab somebody multiple times in the face and in the upper chest area.
However, Further examination of the surrounding area has given detectives an idea where her attacker might have gone.
There was an old railway track that cut through the area, and investigators thought that this might be the escape route for the killer.
The railway track went past the farm where Fiona had died, and it was very popular with cyclists and walkers.
A team of officers have been sent to follow the tracks, and just minutes into their search, they come across two significant pieces of evidence.
In a hedgerow, about chest height, was a garment, a white but dirty garment. This was a white child's vest. The vest had what appeared to be blood upon it. It would appear that somebody had used the vest to place something inside the vest with blood upon it and draw it to clean it.
Not only that, but the officers had found what appeared to be the murder weapon.
There was a black-handled kitchen knife, which appeared to have been wiped, was found in some undergrowth nearby.
The knife with blood upon it, and that blood looked fresh and was a really significant find for us.
Investigators believe the killer discarded both items as they fled the scene.
It had been thrown, as somebody's leaving, thrown outwards towards the left onto a bush. If my theory was right, that somebody had held the vest and drawn the knife through it to clean it, there was a significant possibility of the user's DNA on that vest as well as the blood of the victim. That would be gold.
As detectives canvass the area, they come across another farm near the crime scene.
Lots of people were spoken to around neighbouring farms and neighbouring premises. And one of those was a small farm with horses, a place called Max Home. It was only a couple of fields away as the crow flies.
Max Home Farm was a family-owned operation located near the abandoned railway.
Investigators decide to stop by and pay a visit.
They hadn't witnessed anything out of the ordinary, but in the course of the conversation, detectives learned that the family had recently hired a new farmhand, a 21-year-old man named Daniel Edwards.
Daniel Edwards was working on an ad hoc, cash-in-hand basis at a farm. He would go there most mornings on foot. He'd walk there, and as the family were getting ready for school and work, he might have a cup of tea with them, and then he would go and look after their horses, and at some point after a couple of hours, he would then go home. And in payment for that, he would get a few pounds in cash.
However, the owners didn't think that Daniel had anything to do with it. It turned out that Daniel was a bit slow. He had something like a learning disability.
But later that evening, when detectives compare notes, Daniel's name pops up again.
Listening to the officers during the evening briefing, Daniel Edwards was mentioned more than once. And as we looked at who he was, his relationship to Fiona and her life, he was suddenly very quickly in the spotlight as a person of interest to me.
2 months earlier, he'd worked at Grange Farm, which was his first job with horses, but he was sacked because of poor timekeeping.
He had been dismissed from that post by the lady who owned the horses because he was unreliable, in essence, and his work wasn't as good as she needed. So he had then found employment at a nearby farm, Max Home, where he'd carried out the same role.
After Daniel Edwards lost his job as a stable hand at Grange Farm, he was replaced by Fiona Southwell, who was much more experienced, much more reliable. The contrast couldn't have been greater.
Unfortunately for Daniel, the move had also meant a significant cut in pay, and he appeared to blame Fiona.
He was paid £80 a week at Grange Farm and only £10 or £20 a week at Max Home Farm.
Word around the farm was Daniel hadn't taken it very well. As far as he was concerned, Fiona had stolen his job.
He had harboured a grudge against Fiona for her replacing him. He had been sacked. He was unhappy about that. There had been a verbal confrontation with Fiona at some point.
Daniel appears to not only have a motive to kill Fiona, but the opportunity as well.
People at Max Home Farm had confirmed that Daniel Edwards was in fact in the area of Grange Farm and Max Home at the relevant time on the morning of Friday the 15th. And that relevant time was between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, when we believe the last sighting of Fiona alive was by the farmer of Grange Farm.
Since Daniel had worked at both farms, it made sense that he knew the area like the back of his hand, including the abandoned railway tracks where they had recovered the murder weapon.
He knew all the cut-throughs and he knew all the shortcuts, and suddenly he presented himself as a clear suspect for the murder of Fiona Southwell.
Coming up, a routine search turns up alarming new evidence.
We found clothing which, to the naked eye, had blood upon the hems of the jeans.
Less than 2 days into the investigation of 60-year-old Fiona Southwell's murder, Humberside police have a clear suspect: a 21-year-old stable hand named Daniel Edwards.
From their inquiries, police very quickly identified Daniel Edwards as a suspect and wanted to speak to him as a matter of urgency.
On July 16th, detectives make their move.
Daniel Edwards lived with his stepmother, father and two brothers at King Street in Hornsey, a short walk away from both farms.
Officers were let in by his father after banging on the door. And Daniel Edwards presented himself at the top of the stairs, and one of the detectives within the team arrested him on suspicion of murder. No, he did not resist arrest at all, and interestingly, didn't even ask any questions about why he was being arrested.
While Daniel is brought in for questioning, investigators conduct a search of the home.
Within his bedroom, we found clothing which, to the naked eye, had blood upon the hems of the jeans. So he had his clothing seized from him that he was wearing, and certain forensic examinations of him were carried out. Scenes of crime officer noted that there was staining around his ankles, which seemed to be peculiar. And a swab of those ankles of Daniel Edwards revealed a presumptive positive test for blood.
If the blood matches Fiona's, they have him dead to rights.
The blood samples are immediately sent to a crime lab for further testing. And while police wait for results, Daniel has some explaining to do.
Daniel Edwards was interviewed by an experienced homicide detective. He was interviewed around his movements and to establish his account of events on the day of the murder of Fiona Southwell and the next day.
Daniel appeared to be willing to cooperate at first. He took them on the route that he said he'd taken, but he claimed that went nowhere near the abandoned railway track.
That's all he said, that he'd just gone and done his work and walked home again.
He didn't come across as a criminal mastermind, to say the least. And when police started digging into his background, they found out why.
We found that he had struggled a bit through school. He wasn't an academic type of individual. He wasn't particularly very good at studying. He had had a fairly low IQ.
He had a mild learning disability, an IQ of 69, so just under what you need for a diagnosis of learning disability, and clearly that impacted on him.
He shied away from large groups and liked to keep himself basically within his own head, and was a bit of a loner.
He was a lad whose mother had left him at a very young age, and he was brought up predominantly by his father and stepmother.
As a teenager, Daniel began to act out, which led to problems at home.
Edwards was kicked out of home on occasions, and he bounced back and forth between home and other types of guest accommodation.
Daniel stayed with us back in 2012, and he's quite a quiet lad. He didn't ever say a great deal. He used to cycle to work in Hornsey every day in all weathers. He was working at some sort of tyre reclamation yard. He used to come back filthy.
Daniel's hosts tell police that he soon began taking advantage of their generosity.
At the time, we had direct dial telephones in all the rooms. We suddenly got a bill for £200, And what we realised was Daniel was phoning these sex chat lines and that sort of thing. So he's taking more and more liberties the longer he was here. In fact, we started to lock almost every door in the building because he's getting up to all sorts of shenanigans.
Daniel kept getting into trouble. He kept breaking house rules. He seemed oblivious as to what constituted acceptable behaviour.
One morning at breakfast, I remember saying to him, Daniel, do you know the difference between right and wrong? Because I told him off so many times, and he said, well, he did, but I got the impression he didn't really.
After only 3 months, Daniel had been asked to leave.
He ended up back at home, but he was still clearly struggling to find a purpose in life.
It was not clear how Daniel Edwards came to be working with horses, but as time went past, he did develop an enjoyment for it.
And that seemed to be, from what we could find out about him, the only kind of interest that he had in life at all.
When he wasn't taking care of horses, Daniel could be usually found loitering on the streets of Hornsey.
He was somebody who liked to have a smoke of cannabis now and then. He would do things like hang around the local supermarket to use their free Wi-Fi, and was a fairly well-known face around the area.
It's not clear if Daniel Edwards had any plans or what his future held, but he did seem to have limited horizons.
Daniel's family doesn't seem to have a very high opinion of him either.
He rarely washed and just dumped his clothes in his bedroom every day for his stepmother to clean up.
According to her, the only thing Daniel seemed to care about was his job as a stable hand.
He had been quite upset at losing his job at Grange Farm, looking after those horses. And as the investigation progressed, it was clear that he clearly harboured more of a grudge around losing that job than we initially thought.
This wasn't the first job that Daniel Edwards had lost due to his mental capacities and, due to his learning difficulties. We found out that he'd had 6 or several jobs within that time frame.
And when investigators take a look at Daniel's criminal record, they find something even more disturbing.
He'd been arrested for public drunkenness and assault, amongst other things, but one charge stood out from the rest.
We found that he had had an offence of indecent exposure previously to a woman of a similar age to Fiona Southwell. And that alerted me, was there a sexual element to the offence? Was it revenge?
Coming up, a series of discoveries breaks the case wide open.
The child's vest was similar to those which were used as rags for cleaning.
This was clearly a premeditated attack. He had decided what was going to happen. There is no doubt at all.
Humberside detectives have arrested 21-year-old Daniel Edwards for the brutal murder of Fiona Southwell. But now, the hard work begins.
Within that first 24 to 48 hours of most murder investigations, it can be frenetic, and the pressure on all members of the team is to get it right, and we have to get it right every time.
All signs are pointing towards Edwards as the killer, but can they prove it?
The Humberside police put out an appeal. If anybody had used the old railway tracks and had seen anything suspicious, please to let them know.
Soon after investigators make their public appeal, a woman comes forward with new information.
She explained to us that on the morning of the murder, she had been on the disused railway track, walking her dog, as she usually did. She had seen someone at the relevant time.
She recognised him but could not put a name to his face.
If they can prove it was Daniel, that's a crucial piece of evidence because it completely contradicts everything he told the police.
To verify her testimony, police turned to closed-circuit TV cameras installed in the area.
Luckily, one of the homes nearby had a camera installed, which collected footage of Daniel Edwards walking by, before and after the time of the murder.
Subsequently to that, we then started to find his social media inputs, his phone analysis for text messaging, his geo-tagging and cell site analysis, placing him in the relevant areas at the relevant time.
Now police finally have the evidence they need, and there is more still to come.
The knife found along the railway track hadn't been tied back to Daniel yet, but that changed when investigators conducted a search of Mac's home farm where he worked.
We found missing from that house was a knife from the knife block, which was identified later on as identical to the murder weapon. And within the farm at Mac's home were two young children of the same age that the vest that was recovered related to.
And crucially, the child's vest was similar to those which was used as rags for cleaning at Mac's home farm.
Armed with this new evidence, investigators conduct a second interview with Daniel.
We started to confront him with the evidence that we had found, including the CCTV, his actual movements, as opposed to the movements that he said.
For someone with such a low IQ, it seemed he'd handled himself pretty well. He'd avoided incriminating himself in his initial statement, but obviously that didn't stand up.
What he gave us was a whole lot of truth with a little bit of lie. And that is traditionally what people do. They give some proof areas where we can go and confirm what they're saying is true. So his route to Mac's home was true, his movements and timing was true, but the bit he wasn't truthful about was that on his way home, he went to Grange Farm. He stabbed Fiona Southwell to death, and then he left via the disused railway track all the way back into Hornsey, and he obviously failed to mention that part to us.
However, if police are hoping for a confession, they're sorely disappointed.
Daniel refuses to talk, so police start leaning on him a little harder, taking him through all the evidence they have against him.
The clothing that he was wearing, that we had subsequently recovered from his bedroom, evidential items such as the vest, the blood on the vest, the murder weapon.
That doesn't take them anywhere. Unfortunately, Daniel still refuses to talk.
Still, investigators believe the case against him is strong enough to take to trial.
The police would be very hopeful of getting strong forensic results from both the knife and the vest, and would be anxiously waiting to find out what those were.
We approached the Crown Prosecution Service for a charging decision, which came back that we would be charging Daniel Edwards with the murder of Fiona Southwell, and he would appear before local magistrates the next morning.
On Tuesday, July 19th, just 4 days after the death of Fiona Southwell, Daniel is formally charged with her murder.
There was only me and a couple of other journalists that had actually gone down to Beverley Magistrates Court for the first hearing, and the only people in attendance was Daniel Edwards' father and his stepmom.
Even in court, Daniel remained silent. The only time he said anything was to confirm his name to the judge.
He was just looking forward with a dead man stare. There was nothing there behind them eyes while he was looking. His eyes were just not there.
Daniel doesn't even enter a plea as the judge sends his case to Hull Crown Court.
Daniel finally showed some emotion when the judge told him he wouldn't be granted bail. He didn't seem to care about the murder. The thought of going to prison, that's what brought a tear to his eye.
Coming up, a glimpse into the mind of a disturbed killer.
All of that rage, all of that anger had burst out, a big cathartic explosion.
In January of 2017, the trial of 22-year-old stable hand Daniel Edwards begins. He's accused of stabbing 60-year-old Fiona Southwell to death 6 months earlier, after learning she'd replaced him.
The prosecution described Edwards as somebody who was callous and calculated, prepared to kill an old woman just to get the job back that he felt she'd taken from him and to get rid of his own rage.
The pathologist who conducted Fiona's autopsy testifies to the extreme violence involved in her death.
One knife wound penetrated her brain, another one went straight through her neck. She had a number of other injuries around her body, and indeed it took the Home Office pathologist 50 minutes to go through her injuries in detail.
he was engaged in a frenzy of overkill. He continued to stab her until he felt that rage in him had subsided.
Prosecutors were able to show the jury a wealth of evidence, which included CCTV, phone records, and also text messages that Edwards had sent.
Those messages are used to show Daniel's disturbed state of mind.
He texted a close childhood friend saying that he was on the point of having a nervous breakdown.
And Daniel's social media posts had been a warning as well.
Once we started to dig a little deeper into his social media, there seemed to be a change of mood and a change of mindset within Daniel Edwards, as he had posted peculiar messages and peculiar posts which clearly showed a deterioration of his well-being, and he was having very dark thoughts.
Just 2 weeks before Fiona's murder, there was a series of posts, but one in particular from Daniel was the one where he said he was ready to let his demons come out and play.
We were able to show that he was very bitter around losing his job at Grange Farm, and that he held a grudge significantly against Fiona Southwell, who subsequently was employed.
In addition to his ominous online activity, prosecutors offer cell phone records, which place Daniel at the scene of the crime.
We were able to geographically pinpoint him to certain areas, and through cell site analysis of mobile phone networks, we were able to plot his route to and from and compound the evidence against him.
His phone had activated a mast that could only be accessed from Grange Farm and not at neighbouring Maxholm Farm, where he claimed he'd been that day.
Daniel's own stepmother even testifies against him.
She tells the jury about a conversation she had with Daniel just after the murder. He didn't seem upset at all. He just asked if that meant he could get his job back.
Seems very removed, doesn't it, from emotion, and it belies really his level of social intelligence, and it belies his real connection actually to Fiona.
But the most damning evidence of all comes from the results of DNA tests on the blood police collected from him.
They'd taken samples from his clothes, his feet, and from the murder weapon, and they were all matches for Fiona Southwell.
Edwards wasn't found red-handed, but he was found red-ankled. He literally had blood of the victim on his ankle, which is pretty telling.
A week into the trial, Daniel takes the stand in his own defense.
Whatever the prosecutor asked him, the answer was no. Were you angry because you'd been fired? No. Did you resent Fiona for taking your job? No.
Daniel Edwards had no defence. He could not explain any of the evidence against him.
The forensic findings, the blood on his clothing, his movements and the lies that he'd told, it was absolutely clear that he was responsible for the murder.
On February 1st, the jury is sequestered. It doesn't take them long to decide Daniel's fate.
All the evidence was heard. The jury ended up deliberating for just 3 hours before they came back with the verdict.
The jury found Daniel Edwards guilty of Fiona Southwell's murder. He was jailed for life and must serve a minimum of 24 years.
The sentencing judge said that it would have been more, but he did take his learning difficulties into account.
A young man's resentment over losing his job had driven him to commit an unspeakable crime and robbed a community of one of its most beloved members.
This was a dreadful attack on a defenceless lady by a 6-foot-tall, 21-year-old man who had armed himself with a kitchen knife. A cowardly attack by any measure, and Fiona Southwell never stood a chance.
She was only doing her job, the job that she loved. You just think, what horrible person would want to do this to such a nice lady? And that's what kind of sticks with you.
She'd never get to enjoy her golden years as she'd planned to do because somebody had made sure that she wouldn't.
This was a very sad and tragic case. Fiona Southwell was an innocent woman, did not deserve to be killed in such an horrific way